Hi, my name is Larry Fink, and it's December of 2020. And today I've decided to do, for the very first time, take one, um, a story about an experience I had long ago when I was 16 years old. Um, just a little background information from me, I guess, to start with, since nobody knows who I am. I live in Michigan, and I was born in Michigan, and then I was born with a twin brother, an identical twin brother. My real mother, my natural mother, we were adopted at birth, but my natural mother had a daughter before us. She was 2 years older than us. She was 16 at the time when she had her first child, daughter, my sister. And at that time, talking 1958, somewhere right in there, 57, folks were pretty conservative. My natural mother lived with her family at home. In around near Jackson, Michigan, around one of the popular lakes in that area over there. So here she is, 16 years old. She has a child, and her parents tell her, along with her older brother, tell her that if you have any more, you're going to have to give them up for adoption. They were Christian folks, so they didn't do abortions. I don't think that abortions were going on very much in this country at that time. But anyways, so 18, she's 18, and now all of a sudden she gets pregnant again, and along come twin boys, my brother and I. It was 1960 in March. We were born. She already knew that she was going to have to give us up for adoption. Her aunt, her mother's sister, saw us as tiny babies and decided that it would break her heart. She fell in love with us right away, thank God. Wonderful person. She was 45 at the time. But when she saw, she thought it would break her heart to see us have to be split up, because that's probably what was going to happen. Usually does. So she decided to adopt us. She had recently married a man who I got the last name from, Fink. She was recently married to him for a few years. They were both in their mid-40s or so. And so she decides to take us on. Both of them adopt us. And at 2 years old, they get in a fight, they get divorced, and our mother wanders off on her own with us. Again, she's 45 years old. She'd already had kids, too. Raised them, they were grown up and gone. So it was a very, very noble thing that she did, keeping us in the family like that. But now all of her nephews and nieces suddenly became my cousins. Of course, we were very, very young, being just born, and all of our cousins were like 20, 30 years older than us. It was kind of interesting growing up. Anyways, she struggled. My mother, my adopted mother, she struggled, but she was a good woman. She was a strong woman. She would take jobs, low-paying jobs. I remember one time when I was really little, seeing her working at some kind of an ice cream stand somewhere. She did some restaurant jobs. She managed some restaurants in a bowling alley. Her the man she married after getting a divorce, we were 5 years old, 4 years old, somewhere in there. The man she married was a factory worker at for GM Chevrolet plant down in Toledo, Ohio. So together, she basically struggled for like 3 or 4 years on her own, a couple years on her own, alone. And she made it work somehow or another. So she meets a man. His name is Gene Carpenter, and they get married. And he was an okay stepdad. He was not any kind of an idol of any sort or a hero of any sort, uh, but he was nice. He just was a bit detached. He was, but whatever we needed, he took care of, because he loved my mom enough that he wasn't about to get between us or anything like that. He was a good guy. So we both grew up in Ohio. We moved a lot. I think between kindergarten was one school, first and second grade. First grade was another school, second and third was another school, and finally at fourth grade, we moved out to Holland, Ohio, in '68, somewhere in there, and we lived at that one house until we graduated from that school, Springfield Local High Schools, out there in Holland, Ohio. And so finally, we were in a place where we could have some kind of sense of belonging. Our childhood was good. We had no issues with any kind of abuse or neglect or anything, really. We were poor, but we always used to seem to have a really, really good Christmas. We always had good bicycles and kinds of things that are important to kids as they're growing up. We always lived in neighborhoods where somehow or another, miraculously, it always seemed like there was a bunch of boys around our age. So there was a lot of social and athletic activity and competition and stuff that we grew up with. And I like little fighting, of course, too. It's what boys do in the 60s and early 70s of the United States. So anyways, but growing up for me, for my brother too, we because of our last name, kids would pick on us a lot. And because we were twins, that just gave more. So grade school was pretty challenging. There was a lot of some bullying going on. I wouldn't say a lot, but some, just enough to make you terrified just about every doggone day. So we grew up with a lot of fears and stuff. And that kind of stuff started to trickle away and disappear somewhere in, middle school, late middle school, and certainly in early high school. All the childish nonsense that used to go on, picking on kids and bullying kids for stupid, ridiculous things, that all kind of started disappearing as we all started getting a little bit more mature. So 14, 15, somewhere in there was the very first time that my brother and I began experimenting with things like cigarettes, tobacco, and of course marijuana. And next thing you know, you think marijuana is so good and so great. You've been hearing all your life that it was not good. That was a bad thing to get into. But then once you try it, you're like, wow, this stuff is amazing. How could anybody think this is bad? So yeah, we became partiers, and um, just had kind of a normal life. There were 6 boys on the block in our neighborhood. Oops, 6 boys on the block in our neighborhood, and just a little bit. And we got along with them, had a great time being outdoors. I remember thinking to myself so many times when I was a young man, boy, spending so much time outdoors, playing outside, riding bikes, sports, all the sports we played. I remember thinking to myself so many times, I felt like it was a blessing. I knew in my heart that to be able to spend so much time outside and playing with friends and competing amongst us and gathering ideas amongst us about how to deal with our problems in life and any of the ordinary things that we were exposed to in life at those ages, that it was a great thing to be able to have the opportunity to be outdoors and have all these friends and stuff like that. That was nice. We're not popular. My brother and I were not popular. Neither were any of our friends, like the popular kids in schools. It wasn't like that. But we had good times. We were competitive. We were had some respect a little bit, and like that, life went on for us. So I had a great childhood. I can say I had a good childhood. Our adopted mom began having health problems in her 50s. Diabetes runs in the family. And she began to experience health problems in and out of the hospital maybe once a year, and then it became a little more frequent. And then she began to get glaucoma, cataracts. And so one thing led to another, and literally I watched diabetes tear her life apart slowly, slowly, take her down, so that by the time she was 65, 70, she was in really, really rough shape. And indeed, at 73 1983, somewhere in there. She left this world in 1983 because of complications from her diabetes, kidney failure, and things like that. And it got really ugly. So my brother and I, at 18 years old, we graduate from high school. I graduate with honors on the honor roll, practically straight A's. I think I got 1B. And I was also the outstanding student in my class because my last 2 years I took small engine mechanics at a vocational school down in Perrysburg, Ohio. Penta Career Center. You can look it up. Penta Career Center. It used to be called Penta County Vocational High School when I went to it. But anyways, it's a really nice place now. I saw it a few years back when I was down that way. And so I graduated top of my class in small engine mechanics. I worked as a small engine mechanic for 3 years in the field professionally, coming out of high school there. Part of the program to high school there was job placement. I got the shot at the best jobs, and but you know, a lot of fear in my heart, in my life, from everything that had gone on, bullying, fights with other kids, things like that. So in the course of experimenting with drugs, you know, LSD back in the 70s was popular, mescaline, peyote, things like that. And I would experiment with LSD products. And not every day, just once in a while, because I was poor and didn't have the money to buy that stuff all the time. But when we did, we would get what we could to get intoxicated on. The kids did that. I was a partier. We go to work, do our thing, be responsible during the day, mostly. But in the evening or on the weekends especially, it was party time. That's what folks did. That's what folks still do. So in any case, after doing LSD a few times, I noted pretty much right away that that was some serious psychological affecting intoxication drug, LSD. I learned all I could about it. I had heard about the stories of Timothy Leary and mind expansion and enlightenment and things like that that were coming out of the hippie days. I mean, I was just on the tail end of the hippie days growing up, being born in 1960. So by the time 1970 come around, I'm 10, 75, 76 come around, I'm 15, 16, and the hippie days were concluded right around that time. So the whole idea of deeper thought and enlightenment and the quest to know the absolute truth and the spiritual things and the goal of life and all that stuff, it was pretty, you know, it was something I was familiar with to some degree. But I consider myself, for the most part, just kind of ordinary, you know. I loved all the sports, played them all. By the time I was 16, I had a motorcycle. I was doing all right, but this LSD stuff, man, it really made me think about things. And so I found myself, when I would do that stuff, toward the end of the buzz, toward the end of the event, I would find myself in a meditational state, kind of wondering things like, why are people mean in the world? Why is this world full of suffering? Why do we have to die? Why do we have to get old? Why do bad things happen to good people? I mean, what's hidden beyond our vision here? We can see all the things in this world right in front of us and what we can experience with our senses and stuff, but is there something more beyond that, you know? And of course, you know, our mother, she was a good mom. She was a Christian. She took us to church just about every Sunday for years and years and years, up until like we were mid-teens or so, or early teens, 13. I think we were confirmed members of the First English Lutheran Providence Church down there in Toledo, Ohio, at the age of 13. My brother and I. We were altar boys for a while, you know, lighting the candles and stuff. That was a neat thing, helping out with communion. We had gone to church many times. I'd listened to the sermons that the pastor had to say every Sunday. I listened to them with, you know, some degree of interest. At least I knew what he was talking about anyways. At least I thought I did. So anyways, so I started getting involved with LSD and stuff. And I tell you, it seemed like every time I would do that stuff, at least for me, you'd enter into it in a spirit of just wanting to get high and party. But for me, it always ended up being like, wow, how can I make my life better? Like that, So I would come out of those experiences, those buzzes, those highs. Actually, when it was LSD, I would come out of those on the other side, being like feeling a little bit better about myself and feeling a little bit more confident and courageous about my own personal abilities to be able to make something of myself in this world, and um, and just to be successful, not to be poor, and not to have to be afraid of the the chills of penuriaism. So um, one day, and that's kind of the gist of where the story is going. So I don't know whether to classify this as, well, this is an enlightenment experience, but as far as like in the realm of near-death experiences, the same kind of things that they see, I saw, but I didn't die. So I'm going to kind of dual classify this thing because a lot of the NDE people will want to hear this story. And I'm going to dual classify it as an NDE and enlightenment, I guess, spiritual experience of some sort. So um, here we go. So one morning, I was 16 years old. I had my brother and I had done some LSD the evening before, and we were supposed to go out and party, but friends weren't available for some reason or other, so we got stuck at home. We did some LSD, and we were up in our bedroom, and just kind of riding out the night. And, we were okay. And that evening, just so happened, my mom, adopted mom, and her husband, my stepfather, they got in a fight. But it was like more of like argument. They were lamenting. God, my life has been hard. It hasn't been all that great. You haven't been the most affectionate person, and things have been a struggle, and our lives suck. And so they were talking like that, and it was depressing. So I went to sleep in that condition, and then when I woke up in the morning, still I realized I was still a little bit high from the night before. Most of it had wore off, but I still felt something. And as I laid there, I remember thinking to myself, I felt different, more different than I ever had before. I felt kind of like keenly awake, like really aware of my surroundings and where I was. And on top of it, the most interesting thing is that for the very first time in my life, I could feel the blood flowing through the veins in my entire body. And I thought that that was pretty unusual. I said it out loud. My brother was in the same room with me. I said out loud, I says, I can feel all the blood flowing through my veins. It was quite acute. It was like a hyper awareness of that activity. Somehow or another had become made known to me, manifest in my mind and attention. So, okay, then I start thinking, as I usually do, because now we're at the end of this experience, and I somehow or another always find myself falling into a meditative state, asking questions as to what the goal of life is and things like that. So I started thinking. Why do people act the way they do? Sometimes good, sometimes bad. They can be very disturbing. Females, why do they act and behave the way they do? They seem to be quite a bit different. What's behind what they're thinking? And just as I was thinking like that, I don't know what happened, but it's like a portal opened up, so to say, within me. Within me. Suddenly, I see in my mind's eye, like if it was somebody, like if I just was sitting in a movie theater and somebody just turned on a movie suddenly, but it was within my entire frame of reference, internally, but it was kind of external at the same time. It was a very powerful experience. I saw myself sitting on a rock, which is just about the right size to sit on, maybe like this big in diameter or something like that, or maybe a little bigger, something like, I'm sitting on a rock. And then I see manifest across from me, I see another person sitting on another rock, the same size. But this person was looking like some kind of a Christian monk or something. So I'm seeing this picture of rock, rock, me sitting there, guy sitting there, and we're facing each other. So he's wearing like a brown robe with a black belt, and he has a bit of a beard, hair. So I see me, him. We stand up at the same time. We approach each other like we're only 1 or 2 steps apart. We approach each other and embrace, hug. When I saw this, suddenly an explosion of love, intense love, peace, and harmony, all three at once hit me like I've never experienced before. It was so powerful, and it was so real, and it was internal as well as external simultaneously. When we embrace that just intense portal of love just opened up and totally engulfed me, and it was so powerful that my chest teeth went like that, and I was like, it just filled me. It just it was like what what the NDE people describe when they first, meet somebody or the light or get close to it, things like that. I've studied hundreds of them, hundreds of those stories. I listened to them very carefully. It's the same thing. It was the exact same thing. Very, very powerful love. And you knew instantly, you knew in a very, very powerful, distinct way that here was the truth of everything. That love, super powerful love, is what pervades everything. It's what supports everything. It's the foundation for everything. And it's what's causing everything to be, to move, to exist. It was and coupled with that powerful love and seeing immediately that, well, we're really kind of all the same. That's getting back to my question. Why are people the way they do? What caused this whole thing? Immediately I saw we're really all the same. We all want the same kind of things. We want happiness. We want love. We want to enjoy. We're really all the same. But that while that intense, super crystal clear understanding of that basic question, my very first question was answered. Come along with it was this like powerful wave of intense love, which made me immediately think after that all I can feel, all I can feel and understand is complete peace, love, and harmony. These visions were going off in my mind. It was like I penetrated into the spiritual world. When we leave this world, and the NDEers talk about how they go to another realm, and suddenly, this love and information about the way things are, and the truth about life, and the absolute truth, and who God is, and who we are, and all these real powerful spiritual understandings immediately become manifest to them, having entered that realm. I was able to go to that realm without leaving my body. That's enlightenment. That's what enlightenment's like. So, as I start anything at that point, because now I'm connected into this, into the next realm, and I'm feeling and I'm seeing who I really am. I understood immediately that I'm eternal. That reincarnation is very, very real. It is what happens. It actually is what happens because the body falls, but we as a spirit, who I was experiencing at that moment in a very real way, is eternal and never dies. So how else are you going to be a part of living on planet Earth, if that's what your thing is, unless you have a material body. So therefore, the soul is eternal, and bodies come and go depending on a whole bunch of things. So in any case, I saw that reincarnation was real. I even had a vision of what appeared to be like unlimited thousands and millions of souls, kind of like when you see a flock of birds. Starlings are the best example. Huge flocks of starlings, small little individuals in a huge, huge cloud of birds, and they're just moving and making these shapes and forms as they move with one another. And these huge clouds, you know exactly how they're going and where they're going, and it's all a coordinated thing that's like a oneness of consciousness becomes theirs suddenly when they're in those formations. So I saw all of us coming into the universe in a big mass like that, flying in, happy about the idea that we're going to be able to come here and enjoy and experience all kinds of things. But we were all united in deep, deep love. So that was another vision. If I thought of a question that I had about life, you know, I could just think it, and immediately the answer would come with the simplest and clearest and most intense um, understanding. It was all an explosion that was going on inside me, and it was like the letting down of, in this world we're cut off from perceiving the next realm. We're cut off. That veil that separates the two, for me in that experience, it dropped. It dropped, and I was able to be on the other side, to see it from a position of still being in this world. That was cool. Didn't have to die in order to see what all the NDE folks see. So I know what they're talking about. I know very well what they're talking about. All the salient points that a person who's had a near-death experiences, and these points were categorized by some really smart folks who wrote books on these things, this issue and the near-death experience issue back in the 70s. Those famous authors, can't remember their name right now, but Richard Atwater, I think, is one. There's lots of them, but the original ones who first wrote the books about this stuff, they categorized that. Here's what we found in our studies of interviewing hundreds of people who have had NDEs, that they experience going through a tunnel, they experience coming into a light, and they experience intense love, and then their knowledge opens up about God's intention for them and intention for everybody. It's like you can finally clearly see at last what's really behind all these questions that, why are we here, and where are we going, and who is God, and who are we, and all that stuff becomes instantly available as a natural aspect of that realm. So knowledge becomes a concomitant factor with just being there. It automatically, you become part of it. So anyways, I was in that realm, and anything I thought of. So initially, after those first few things I described, having the intense explosion of love, and instantly seeing some of the answers to my questions in deep divine understandings, and then seeing all the souls come into the universe, and the intention that they were coming in, all united and empowered by love. Then I started thinking of other things, and it was so long ago now. I didn't write this down for the very first time in my life until about 5 years ago. And here I am, 60 now, and this happened when I was 16. So, but still, it was the most important experience of my life. So that's why it's still fairly fresh to me. It's been my hope against hope, so to say, because I do believe what happened to me was like more than real. And in fact, when I was in it, that is another one of the salient features that you experience when you know you're in the right place with spiritual experiences, that you will understand, you will know that what you're experiencing is far more real than what everything is that we see in front of us while we're here on this planet, in this world. we know that we're in a more real place, a place where time isn't having the same kind of effects that it will have here. Things have a short duration of life for their bodies, and then they're created, maintained, they grow, they reproduce, they dwindle, and they finally die. That's the 6 aspects of the cycle of life for every living thing in the material world. When you get a material body, that's what happens. Creation, maintenance, reproduction, dwindling, death, like that. Growth, birth, growth, maintenance, reproduction, dwindling, and death. There you go. That's what they are. So that happens to everybody. But that doesn't happen in the next realm, when we leave this body and we go to the spiritual world, which is still existing within the material realm. There's like a place, a realm within the material world. There's this realm that we go to, which is much more where we belong. It's more like our home, although it's not. But anyways, that place is far more real and important to us than this place. Far more important to us than this place. And that was the acute sense of knowing that this world was not my real home, and that it's just a temporary spot that we go to undertake our activities for certain reasons that we may not know right now, but we will know later. I understood very, very clearly, very, very clearly. It was so important. It was such a big thing that I'm eternal. That love is what I'm made of, and is what pushes me, and it's the underlying foundational power that everything else is built on. Believe it or not, it's actually the truth. So I could see all these things, and I felt so powerful, and all my fear about life in this world was gone. I felt revived, refreshed, purified, like all whatever sins. I felt like cleaned out, like any sins that I may have had or done, which might have been causing a dark cloud around me. In a moment, it was washed away. When just as all the NDEers, they go to the other side and they see the light, and they talk to their relatives and they see Jesus and all those things. It's very, very, very real, very purifying. And when that happens to you and you come back here, or if you're still here, which was my case, I never left. I was just seeing all this like they saw. It completely changes you. It changes you big time. As I was coming out of that experience, the way things started happening was I started realizing that when I would think about an answer to some kind of a deep question like war or anything I was like a little perplexed about, the questions that you'd want to ask some great divine personality. Those things, when I would think of those questions, knowing that the answer immediately would come, it started to get a little harder I could see that power was waning, was starting to go away. This is probably after about 15-20 minutes or so. While I was in it, I was just in ecstasy. I was just in a whole other place. Mercy, compassion, love, peace, harmony, eternal life, understanding that I wasn't this body, that reincarnation is a real thing, that there is no such thing as death. All those things come to you at once. Everybody knows that, who's had these kinds of experiences. And so as I noticed it started to, the ability to access this other side, as I noticed it was waning, I thought to myself, well, good, I've seen enough now of the truth about life that I can confidently go forward with my own life now. I know that if I just don't be lazy and if I just put my best foot forward and work hard, study, and do good, that and be active, that I can make a decent life for myself. I don't have to worry about poverty because I was really scared of poverty. I didn't see God in that experience. However, in fact, if you asked me what I believe God was immediately thereafter, and this was my response for a few years until I learned differently later on. He says, "Oh, what is the truth? What is the absolute truth? That we are all one." Because that aspect is actually true. And that's the first thing you see when you're coming up out of ignorance. When you go into the spiritual light, the first thing you experience is that love is the most amazing thing and that we're all one. We're all, because we are. We are all united under God's umbrella. Tiny parts of his body. He's a person, the supreme person. Just like you and I are a person, but we have our limitations. He's a person with no limitations. So you got that to look forward to. It's a beautiful thing. That's where all this stuff comes from. So anyway, I'm coming out of this experience. I'm feeling revived, refreshed. I can go forward with my life now. I can be happy. I can be successful. I don't have to be afraid. I know that I will be all right. So while I was in the midst of that experience, shortly after it first began occurring, here's something neat. I haven't told you about this yet, but someone began talking to me. I couldn't see who it was. I could only hear very clearly this person's voice. It was a male. It was very, very, soft, compassionate, but authoritative at the same time, like unjudging. So he said four things to me. As I'm sitting there reveling in this experience, thinking 1,000 things a minute, seeing all these amazing things, all of a sudden someone starts talking to me. And his voice sounded internal as well as external. But he said to me, he said, don't be lazy. Don't smoke. And don't take intoxication anymore because it can't help you any further. And those four things initially. Don't be lazy. Don't smoke. Don't take intoxication. Oh, and he said, you'll live to a ripe old age. Says so. That's how it went, like that. In a very, very, very nice way, but in a way that when he said it, you knew it was the truth. It penetrated your psyche, and you knew that he wasn't just picking on you for something that doesn't really apply. He actually could see right inside you, could see what you needed to hear the most. So really for me, and I could explain it, but what he said, I needed to hear the most. Don't be lazy. I did have a little bit of a laziness streak about me. I could see that. When he said that, I could see it. So it enthused me I got to work to give that up. And then him saying, don't take intoxicants. They can't help you any further. I knew that when he said it that way, I knew that there was something to gain from them. I got something out of them. But now, after this point, after this experience, there was nothing more I was going to be able to gain by doing them if I thought there was something to gain. So that's how that works. And then him saying, don't smoke. And you'll live to a ripe old age. And there was a pause for a second. Because there wasn't a pause between the first four things. And then there was a pause for a second. And then he said, oh, and Christianity is not for you. It was like an afterthought. It was like he was leaving and he thought of this one last thing to tell me, and that was a good thing to tell me because I kind of felt that way anyways. But after seeing what I saw, that reincarnation was for real, I knew that Christianity had to be off the table for me because they don't accept it straight up. So I knew that I needed to start looking toward the East, toward those parts of the world that believed in that kind of thing. So So I get up, I get dressed, I'm feeling in ecstasy, I'm ready to face the world, I'm feeling totally purified. I'm feeling also like I don't ever want to smoke again, I don't ever want to take drugs again, I don't want to use women, I just want to live a very clean, pure life. So I come downstairs and I'm feeling that that's kind of what I want. I know that that's the best thing, but now I'm starting to think as I can feel and see this veil of illusion falling, descending around me, cutting me off from being able to access the next realm and all it has to offer. I could feel and experience. I could see it, sort of seeing it, feeling it, and experiencing it all at the same time, from within my mind's eye, that I was being sent back, basically. I was being cut off from this divine experience, this divine access that I had, being cut off and sent back to reality. So I could experience that there was this veil of illusion that was falling down, dropping like a curtain almost. I could perceive it. It was like I was being cut off. But I remembered what happened to me, of course. And I was feeling what happened to me. I just felt like $1,000,000. I just felt so purified and so spiritually advanced and enlightened. I was just in ecstasy. But I comes downstairs and, one of my neighborhood friends suddenly appears, knocks on the door. Hey, come on, man, I got some weed. Let's go smoke. I looked at him. As soon as I saw his face, I thought to myself, he'll never be able to understand what I just saw and what I just experienced. There's no way he's going to be able to understand. I want to tell him that, look, I just experienced God and it completely changed me, and I don't want to party anymore. I want to be completely different. But I could see, looking at his face, the second I saw his face, I could see that he would never ever be able to penetrate and understand what had just happened to me. It just wasn't possible unless the only way another person can understand what us folks who have had these experiences, the only person who can understand is someone else has had them. It's that much of a separation in a person's ability to perceive. If you haven't had a deep spiritual experience like this, you won't be impressed with what we have to say. You have to experience it for yourself, and then when you do, you're like, whoa. So I see immediately there's no way he's gonna be able to understand what I just experienced, and words. And as I was experiencing too, that's another salient feature. Words can't describe what you experienced. Yeah, it is. You can if you think about it after a while. For a long time, you can describe it, but at the moment you're experiencing it, you definitely know that this is far beyond what you're seeing and what you're feeling and what you're experiencing is far beyond um, um, anyone's ability to understand who have not experienced such a thing. So then I tell him, you know what, I don't want to party anymore. I actually said that. I actually said, you know what, I just had this amazing experience and I feel really good and I don't want to party anymore. He looked at me like, what? Are you crazy? Of course. And that's the predictable reaction I would have got from, that was predictable. There's no way he could understand why I would say such a thing. It just would be inconceivable. It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. It wouldn't be like, oh, okay, I get it. I understand what you're getting at now. Yeah, okay, I feel you. No. That's how much of a difference it is. So, he's talking, oh, I just got some weed, let's go smoke, blah, blah, blah. And I started thinking to myself, okay, so here I am. I'm 16 years old, still going to school. I am surrounded by a whole bunch of people. In fact, everybody that I know are in the dark. They don't know what I just saw and the truth about life and all these things, which completely change you, which is going to change me. And I'm thinking I'm living with all these folks who are just like covered by the material energy. They're just in darkness. But I love them. They're all they just haven't woke up yet, but they will someday. Everybody does. So I just decide, okay, there's nothing I can do about this now. I can't live like a saintly person suddenly. I'm surrounded by, with no opportunity to just like, oh, there's a church down the street with a great monastery monk policy. I can just walk down there and sign up. Wasn't like that. So I realized I got to play the game. Got to go back to playing old Larry. But now I just got to figure out how to find out more about what I just experienced so I can learn how to use it in my life. So you're faced with this. I got to go back to doing what I did before because there's no way I can like suddenly change my environment drastically like that. It just wasn't possible. So you have to just go on playing the same game you were playing before, which I did very well. Behaving like it's like later on I learned it's like, well, never mind. Anyway, so what led me then after that, and that experience left me with so many positive things. The fear, knowing that I was doing to live to a ripe old age, knowing that's a fact. It's a fact. I'm going to live to a ripe old age. Here I am 60. It's going to keep going for a while longer. I know it because this divine person could see every aspect of my life and my future, and he knew that that's what was going to happen, and that's why he said it. It's actually true. So I no longer had the fear of death. I did not have to worry about the fear of death and that some accident going to happen to me and I'm suddenly going to be taken out young. It happens to a lot of people. Will happen to me? Nope. I now knew that I had the enthusiasm to go out and make a better life for myself. I was floundering in school before. I came into vocational high school. I was out of high school, regular high school, into vocational high school with like a D average. That was actually one of the reasons I got accepted. But after this experience, my first year in vocational high school, I entered 11th grade. I went directly to a B student and then the next year straight A's. And only because of the benefit that I got from this experience, it opened my intelligence level up. It gave me the ability to remember a lot better. It increased my memory, enhanced my memory a lot. My memory and my ability to see things as they really were and understand them. First off, saying that this is a material energy and that there's a spiritual side of things out there that's unseen. But here's a material energy and it's manipulable and it's here for us to manipulate. But it gave me the ability to see how that works. A mechanical intelligence, if you will. In fact, I became a great mechanic because of it. In school, I didn't even have to study hard. I didn't even have to do any homework. That experience enhanced my memory so much that now all I had to do was just pay attention in class, listen to what they got to say, take a couple of notes maybe. And when test time would come, I would suddenly be able to remember everything, whereas before I couldn't. I'd listen in class, but I had a hard time, drilling it into my memory banks and making them work. But after this experience, suddenly I went from a D student to an A student simply because of what I just told you. I could comprehend what they were saying and I could remember what they were saying, where I couldn't before. That's how I got 2 straight A's. Apparently, I was low on the totem pole in that area because so many people in this world have that ability already without having to experience what I experienced. But anyways, that's one of the benefits I got. So, yeah. So I just finished school. I did really, really well. I graduated the outstanding student in my 2-year class. I was number 1. All because of this experience, because it increased my memory ability and my comprehension ability. It gave me like a magic touch. It literally gave me a magic touch with machinery, mechanics, engines. And then, so my ordinary life was going on in that way. Job opportunities were coming and I was taking them. I was running with them. I was doing a great job with them, doing everything you're supposed to do to be successful. I knew I could do it now. my enlightenment experience gave me that ability and enthusiasm. But at the same time, I was pretending to be that guy, the ordinary materialistic Larry, doing what everything you're supposed to do, looking right from, doing everything, optics wise. I looked like I was doing everything right. It was proper. I was. But inwardly, I was like, I got to know more about that experience. I was dying to know more about that experience. What was that? In fact, one of the last things I thought about, this is really important, because I know a lot of the NDE people I listen to, I got a feeling that they've kind of just settled in with what their own little experience was and haven't gone a whole lot more beyond that, or at least as far as searching for what that was and what more was behind that, what more is out there. So when I had that experience, I was so floored by how powerful it was and how amazing it was and how spiritually deep it was and how much more was revealed to me about what's out there as opposed to what you can just see without having a connection like that. So I decided that that was so super fantastic, what I saw, what happened to me, what I felt. Why should I think that little old me has experienced everything there was to experience? Because I felt that way. It's so intoxicating, that experience. It makes you feel that way. It makes you feel like you've seen God. You know everything there is to know about the universe and the why of everything. It makes you feel that way. But I thought about it, and I thought, as the experience was waning, I thought, and I think that this was a blessing from God. I thought, why should little old me think that that's all there is to life? That I've seen it all. That was the summons. That was the I don't. There isn't anything more I need to see. Why should I think that way? Why shouldn't I think more like this? That was so amazing. I'll bet there's a whole bunch more going on that wasn't exposed to little old me today. I'll bet there's a whole lot more out there. Turns out I was right. Turns out I was right. And here's where I think that a lot of folks fall short in. They experience these kinds of things and they are satisfied with what they experienced and they don't really dig deeper or much deeper after that at all. Well, I decided to do the opposite. I decided to dig deep. I wanted to dig as deep as you could possibly dig. I was so thrilled with what happened to me. I wanted to find out so much more about this because if there was a possibility of being able to do something in this world that could make me feel that amazing love that I felt and have the clarity of mind and heart and spiritual vision and God that I had, if there's anything I could do to possibly open that up and get that going for me in this world, I wanted to look to see if maybe there was something out there. So I knew I had to look toward the east. I would go to libraries, 17, 18 years old, still living down in Ohio. Felt all by myself, felt isolated. I didn't know anybody that could understand what I was talking about when I started talking about this stuff, because I'd go to parties sometimes after this happened, and sometimes I'd be like, oh my God, you guys, I got something to tell you. I experienced some most amazing thing, and I want to tell you that we're eternal. Reincarnation is real. And then, most of them, look at me with blank stares like, wow, okay, I kind of dig that. That's kind of cool, but so what? Let's party. I'd be like, no, you gotta understand. This is more important than anything. Put the fucking partying away, dude. You gotta listen to me. Let's talk about this. This is where life's really at. Not just wasting our time like a cat or a dog. Just going from one sense enjoyment thing to the next over and over again, the same thing even, and thinking that you're going to be happy. I realized then that my experience made me also perfectly understand that that's not going to make you happy. The only thing that's really going to make you happy is if you can somehow or another, the more we can connect with our real spiritual side, that's what's going to make us happy. So, yeah, I would try to talk to friends about it. Never went over well. They could never understand what I was getting at. Like I said, unless you've had this experience, you just can't perceive how important it is. You just can't. Your mind and intelligence can't penetrate it. Straight up. So, yeah, you felt pretty alone. Didn't know anybody else who had any experiences like this. I would run into a couple people occasionally who you could talk to a little bit about, but I always felt that we were both lacking, really. So I'd go to libraries, and once in a while, not all the time, but just once in a while, I'd go to a library. And when I was in there, I would go to the religious, metaphysical, Eastern studies, thought, religious books and stuff, Buddhism and things like Hinduism and that section of books. And so I just knew, okay, it had to be from the East, whatever I was going to find. So I started reading some of those books. And I read the story of Buddha and some of his teachings and stuff. And I thought, you know what? A lot of stuff that they're talking about fits my experience. Fits. And so I studied their stuff for about 3 years. And I thought that this was probably the best fit for me. I thought it made sense to me the most based on what I'd seen, what I experienced. And I knew I couldn't be fooled by anything. That's another thing. This experience was so powerful. And I knew after having that experience and seeing the aspects of the truth about life that I saw and understood, I knew that I couldn't be fooled by anybody in this world who was putting forth something that was not real. So I had that confidence as well too. And that was another plus from the experience. Got all kinds of benefits from that experience, all kinds. Wonderful thing. Changed my life completely. Made my focus from just trying to make some money and get through life to, hey, there's a God out there and I want to know all I can know about him because that's where the real life is. That's where the bigger life is. That's where we belong. That's what's important. So that was the change it brought about in me. And finally, after 3 years, at the age of 19, finally I met the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the Hare Krishnas. I ran into one of their members. I liked what he had to say. I knew I wasn't going to be fooled by anything, so I agreed to go to the temple. I met with them there, spoke with them, liked what I was hearing, I agreed with everything, and I knew was going to be the right thing for me. And they gave me a Bhagavad Gita that night, and I visited with them for about 4 or 5 hours, and then I went home with their most important book, the Bhagavad Gita, as it is, by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The 1972 Macmillan edition was the one that they gave me. I take it home, and I liked my experience with them, so I opened the book, Bhagavad Gita. They taught me how to read it. The devotee who I first met, who first talked to, Pritu Das from Germany, SrilaPrabhupadas disciple. Great soul, great soul. He loved me. He was a guy he fought for me. He stole me away from Maya. Anyway, he gives me the book, tells me how to read it. I go home, I open it up, read the first chapter. Then when I got to the second chapter, it started hitting hard. I started seeing stuff in there which just made me just about jump out of my seat. When Krishna started talking about the eternality of the soul and how nobody ever dies and how reincarnation is real and things like that, and it was just like, I was just like blown away. This is the first time that I had read in such a succinct, orderly presentation of the truth about life, the absolute truth. What I experienced, what I saw, what I felt, what I knew was put so succinctly and orderly and just hard hitting and to the point. Bottom line, here's what it is. Lord Krishna was talking to his friend Arjuna in the second chapter, and he's beginning to describe to him who we really are. And I was thrilled. I was thrilled as I was reading it. I couldn't, I'd read a bunch of books, before from Buddhism, this thing, that thing. And while I thought it was pretty good stuff, opening up this and reading just, one chapter of an 18-chapter book, reading just one chapter, I am like thrilled beyond belief. I was just like blown away how this made so much sense to me and how this was like what Lord Krishna was telling Arjuna here was really the truth. It was factually the truth because I'd seen the truth. I know what the truth is. And so as I was reading his words, they were just hitting me hard, like put me right back in that experience that I had. And I understood that they were one and the same thing. Lord Krishna's words, the truth of what he was saying versus what I had experienced, there was no difference between these two things. I couldn't believe it. I was in absolute ecstasy. I thought to myself, oh my God, this is the highest truth in life. Here it is. I found it. This is what I was looking for. I was thrilled. I was thrilled. So I'm reading the book. I still didn't realize, though, I'm still stuck in the idea of Buddhism and my own little experience that I had that, we're all one, that there is really no God, but he's just like a big force. He's like this force that encapsulates everything, and everything's within this force within him, and therefore we are all one with. So I was, pretty much convinced that this is the way things probably were. I didn't realize that God was a person or could be a person. So as I'm reading along, it didn't dawn on me who Lord Krishna was. I knew that he was Arjuna's chariot driver. I knew he was the subject of the book. I knew that he was a great personality. But I didn't realize who he really was until I started getting up to, like, I think it was the 12th chapter somewhere in there. I read for about 3 hours straight. I was thrilled. I just kept reading and reading and reading. And yeah, some of the stuff I didn't understand because it was new to me. And so the stuff I did understand, it's fairly good English. And being that I had a spiritual experience and I've been studying some books about it for a couple of years now, so I sit down and open this one, and a lot of the things, I understood what they were saying. But when I got up to around the 12th chapter, I think that's the universal form where Lord Krishna reveals to Arjuna who he really is, that he's actually God. I believed it so much so that I had another epiphany while reading that book. I was thrilled. I was like, oh my God, this is who God actually is. And here he is, and he's appeared in this world, and this is the form that he's taken, and it's a spiritual form. And he's appeared in this world 5,000 years ago. And in my realm of knowledge, well, nobody knows who God, because Christians teach nobody knows who God is. You've never seen God. And we have Jesus, but he worships God, but nobody's ever seen the big guy. Well, it hit me like a ton of bricks that this is the big guy. This is actually the big guy. This is the oldest religion in the world. He was here 5,000 years ago, predates Jesus. He's the father of Jesus. He's the father of all the incarnations and all the prophets and all the saints and everything, all the unlimited universes and everything within them. It hit me like a ton of bricks that actually Lord Krishna is the source of it all. Lord Krishna, the personality and form, the historical personality and form of Lord Krishna as we know it, even in this world, is actually an eternal form of God's, his original eternal form in the spiritual world. He just didn't hide himself. He just came down directly and said, here I am. I'm going to do some things for about 125 years in this world. And then I'm going to go. And I'm going to leave, and there's going to be books about me, lots of information about me. So when it hit me, as I read it, suddenly it was like a great awakening epiphany. It was like a big thing in my mind and my heart. Like, oh my God, Lord Krishna is God. The moment I thought that, and I'm in this little bedroom all by myself in some apartment in Plymouth, Michigan, over my left shoulder, someone clearly says, if they were standing right next to me, someone clearly says to me, says, as soon as I think, oh my God, this is who God actually is. This is him. Someone said over my left shoulder, you will not take birth again. And I thought to myself, I know nobody's in this room, but I really like the idea of that because I really don't want to take birth in this world again. After what I know, this is not where you want to be. And so then I find in one afternoon, Lord Krishna, God, takes me to exactly what I'm looking for. Because I was looking. I mean, I was serious. I wasn't going to give up the search to find out what was behind that experience I had. And what that bigger world is, what that greater thing is that I couldn't see, what's missing. I looked and looked and looked and looked and looked, and I think it was because of the fact that I was committed to searching for what was backing that experience of mine. that God actually led me to it. I realized all those things as I'm sitting there reading that book, and I realized this is what I was looking for. And then this is who God actually is. And when he said to me, Christianity isn't for you, this is what's for me. So I was thrilled. I knew immediately that I wanted to tell everybody I knew or could find. I wanted to shout it out from the mountaintop. Here's what you're all looking for. This is Lord Krishna's God. And you need to learn this understanding about him. And because it'll make your lives better. It'll put this world in a better place. That's what I was all about. That's what I was all about after that experience. That's what it does for you. And so I knew that this was the best. There was anything in this world. There was nothing in this world that was better than what this book was telling me, and the personality in this book, and what this side of the philosophy and life was about. I knew that this was the absolute best. I knew it was exactly what I was looking for. I knew that in this universe there was probably no higher understanding of God. I felt all those things. It was a another great experience and epiphany. So, 6 months later, I joined them, and it was their understanding of God, who God is, Lord Krishna, and all his teachings, and all those great sages and saints from India. They have presented in these great works of the Vedas, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, and so many others along the line of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and the Bhakti cult that it was started by Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago in West Bengal, India. 1486 was his birth year. That this knowledge and understanding that all of us NDEers and Enlightenment people were looking for, it's out there in this world. And according to your own personal desire, ambition, destiny, good fortune, that God will lead each and every one of us to something. So this is my story of my something. And here I am, 42 years later, vegetarian for 42 years, devotee of Krishna for about 46 years, that it has at every moment exceeded my expectations, what I found, what God led me to. It has always by far exceeded my expectations. Is knowledge about God, a relationship with him, who he is, what this world is, how to attain him, all those things he's given to me, I believe, to the fullest extent possible in this world. So to him I thank from the bottom of my heart, and I try to do whatever I can to pass this along to anybody else who's willing to listen to. It's a very hard and rare thing that I find someone who's can understand the truth about life, what God really is all about, those kinds of things. It's a very rare person who cares. Let's face it, people come to this world because they want to enjoy this world and this body. They want to exploit this body and the various orifices it has for their pleasure. And they think that this is all in all. So, but in the Hare Krishna movement is filled with such people who understand all these things. So it's already here. Anita Morgiani and all those others of you out there, even Alexander, Dr. Party, and so many others. All you big Jeff Olson, all you big NDEers. I've watched all of your presentations. They're very nice. What you experience is the truth, but it's a limited truth. It's an experience that best suits you for where you're at right now. But what you saw on the other side was just a really teeny tiny part of what's out there. And the only, in this world, on this planet at this time, the only literatures that describe what you saw and a whole lot more, what you're looking for, is the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya Bhakti line of devotion and spiritual masters, beginning with Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in 1486 and ending with His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and his mission that he left on this world, is where you're going to find the best of the best, the very, very best of the best. And I guarantee you, look into it. Please, I beg you. You will find that it will exceed your expectations. Drop your guard, though. Don't look at it. Don't try to study the absolute truth with a preconceived idea. You got to be open-minded. That's really important. You got to be open-minded and approach these unbelievably beautiful books with an open mind and an open heart. And I think that anybody who does is going to be amazed. And that's what we're seeing in the Hare Krishna movement. That's why it's blossomed so beautifully. I was so thrilled to have been a part of that back in the 80s, all through the 80s. Thrilled to be a part of it. I know it's going to reflect good on my record. So that's my story for now. Anybody wants to contact me, please do. Please do. I'll tell you what I think, and we can have some chats which will actually take us to the spiritual world as opposed to making us feel dirty. We can have some good chats about spiritual things which make you feel happy and enliven you. Spiritual life, spiritual practice is the only thing that, for me, keeps me going in this world of death and destruction. All right. So that's all I can think of for now. And like I said, it's the first time I ever posted anything like this. Never tried it before, but I got inspired by seeing all you NDE people out there posting your stories. And I thought, I got a really good one. I bet this is going to help somebody. Thanks. Bye.